Hello, this is the voice of Stuart Pearce, and welcome to my series of deep dialogues. These are vital conversations I engage in with global soul stewards from all over the planet, providing us with vital understandings about how we can create a new hierarchy of values to help us evolve into a brave new world. I hope you enjoy, and thanks for listening.
And here we are, and welcome to everybody, and particularly welcome to this amazing gentleman that I have sitting in front of me. Greetings, beacons of light. Michael, it is such a pleasure to have you here. And I just want to formally introduce you to the wonderful people who will be tuning into, because this is a pre-record, as we know. It will actually be broadcast on November the 7th. So now this wonderful Michael Sandler that we have sitting in front of us is a man of protean means. Michael is a teacher of mysticism and a host of the massively popular Inspire Nation show, a transformation, self-help, spiritually focused YouTube channel and podcast that has literally radically transformed the lives of hundreds of thousands of people worldwide through over 2,000 shows. Michael is a best-selling author, speaker, meditation coach, and the co-creator of School of Mystics, alongside Awe, an automatic writing experience. That's AWE. Illustrating how life paths change through creative excellence, Michael is a former pro athlete whose 2 near-death experiences completely changed his life. Michael's NDEs led him to a much deeper understanding of the life of planet Earth and of our connection to a supreme cosmic intelligence. Michael's Inspire Nation show can be found on YouTube, iTunes, and many other podcast platforms, and his websites will be fully visible for you. Michael, welcome.
Thank you, Stuart, for the brilliant introduction. And I say brilliant because I could have you read a dictionary, Stuart, and it would be fun.
Do you know that actually is a primary exercise, or at least it was many years ago for actors? Be exciting reading a dictionary, or be exciting reading the address book, which we know, the telephone directory, which we rarely have these days. Everybody has everything stored away on cellular mechanisms. So Michael, this has been, I met you, I think now it's about 12 years ago, maybe 10 years ago, on the island of Maui. And it's just been so fascinating watching the ascent of your trajectory. Where did it all begin? Where did the deep opening of mysticism take place for you?
5 years of age. 5 years of age, I was standing on a Fisher-Price Matchbox car parking garage. My parents were out of the house, and I was up peering out the window, and wondered, if I close my eyes, do they exist? Do I exist? What is existence? And I slipped and fell, we'll talk more about boo-boos later, and lost my first tooth. And I think it was a punctuation mark to remind me of that moment. Now, I had a more interesting childhood than the traditional one because I always felt like a square peg in a round hole world. However, the seeds really started to come to fruition in early adulthood. First off, you mentioned that I was a professional athlete. I raced bicycles in Europe and tried to make it to the Tour de France before that was ended with an injury where a safety official waved me through a blind, I'm going to put that in quotes, turn into an oncoming car. For 6.5, 7 years, I thought, because I had been pretty spiritual, or more on the religious side, but I thought, God is dead, there is no God. And was in and out of pain centers and this and that, until I started to really I dove in and started challenging beliefs that I had been taught. And I started supplanting them with new ones. One of the big pieces was I was blessed or gifted. So growing up, I grew up in a Jewish household, but was sent to Christian or Catholic schools. So I got a very interesting tapestry going. And then when I came back from Europe, I dated for 6.5 years a Navajo girl, and I got Native American traditions and ceremony. And something started to click, something started to go together, and I started doing a deep dive. Let's dive into meditation, let's dive into this practice, that practice, and started to, I think, wake up to who and what we all are. But apparently that bike accident had been exactly what I needed to get me off of the path toward Tour de France, and who knows, maybe cycling, drugs, or good stuff there to take me into a much better path. Well, better implies judgment. There is no judgment. When you met me, I had had my first near-death experience, which had been incredibly transformative. And I think it was just after my second near-death experience, I had been lost on Maui. I had been lost in spiritual practice, Stuart, being a numbing agent, an agent that brought me more away. So first off, I came back from ND #1, and I can go there if you want. And I'm like, well, now I must save the
I'd love
world.
you to give us context. I mean, when you
Yeah.
mention near-death experience, I don't want us to be light about it, because your near-death experience was harrowing and severe, but it was also an immense beacon in your life that took you. That's why I wanted to use the phrase, the through the creative excellence of our path, that we're constantly shifting, transforming. There is a death, there is a rebirth, and so I'd love you to contextualize that.
Yeah, and it's interesting. April 2nd, 2006 is my new birthday.
Right.
And I went back to the spot where the experience happened each year for at least 7 years, and put my hand on a tree and prayed until it basically an imprint formed in the bark, which is really cool.
Wow.
I was training. So I was an elite athlete. I had done in 2004 a 5,000-mile, 40-day solo unsupported bike ride across the country to help students and adults with learning disability. And I wrote a niche little bestseller on it, on college confidence with ADD. In 2006, I was sponsored by Rollerblade to do a world record skate across the country, 4,000 miles in 40 days. I had just completed a training, a workout on a Sunday a few months before the event. And I skated up to the western end of Boulder, a place called Boulder Creek, where you can put your feet in the water. And I imagine I took off my skates and sat in the water to meditate. And I picture like steam coming up off of them after this workout. And I sat in the water, and I went into deep prayer. And because I was very nervous. I was very, very nervous of, am I supposed to do this, or is this my ego? Because I wanted to make sure I'm not coming from a place of ego doing it. And so I prayed for safety and guidance. Be careful what you wish for, Stuart. I got out. I laced my skates back up to go home. Now the town of Boulder is starting to wake up. It's later in the morning. So I said to myself, go slow, Michael. There'll be tourists out on the bike path. Just take your time. I rounded the first bend, and lo and behold, a father, a tourist visiting town, had stepped out just at the bottom of a tiny little hill, teaching his baby how to walk right in front of me. I even had a brake sponsor. There was no time to do anything. Somehow, miraculously, I managed to go up and backwards, kind of jump like I was plugged into electricity, up and backwards. And I remember being in the air, not even knowing how I got into the air. Maybe it was an instinctive impulse to not hit the baby. And I remember thinking, am I still going to be able to do the skate? As I landed, and I like to say with a huge concussive dull thud, my whole world in that moment, there's a Japanese term, satori, which means instant awakening. My whole everything transformed. So it was the briefest pause. It's not like I was gone for an eternity and saw the tunnel and everything. Maybe I did, But that's not what I was gifted with consciously. There was a me that was in the air. There was a different me on the ground. It was such a moment of, I have no other way to describe it. Pure joy, pure bliss, pure ecstasy, just filled with love and light and wow, wow, wow. At the same time, I have pieces of bone sticking through my leg, not coming out, sticking through my leg. I'm bleeding out internally. And something told me to take my left leg and to grab it and haul it over my right, or I would have bled out internally.
Wow.
So I was in extreme, immense pain, but that wasn't my experience.
Wow.
That was, the body was having that experience. When they came there, when the EMTs, first fire department came there, I've got this.
How did the that immediate recovery in terms of emergency services? Did the father see the predicament that your physical body was in and call emergency services? What happened?
I have no idea. As best as I can tell, from what I understand, father stuck around for a little bit and then boogied the heck out of there. Wow. Never to be seen or heard from again. And I imagine someday I will find this boy, or this boy will appear, and I would love to hear the story. What I got was, I think it was a woman EMT or fire department first, and then more fire department. Guy was gone. So I saw them before me when I hit the ground, and I opened my eyes. As I like to say, boy was okay. I had managed to twist myself to the side, so I stuck the landing right in front of them without hitting the boy. Boy was okay. Dad was okay. Fingers worked. Toes as best as they could inside the skates worked. Sun still shining. Life is good. I have no idea what happened to them. When the EMTs or fire department got there, they found me with a beaming ear-to-ear grin, completely broken. I mean, many breaks, shattered hip, femur, wrist, I think a few other things in there. And yet I'm grinning ear to ear. And so they started asking me a bunch of questions. And what they don't realize is I'm also still in this meditative state. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm in a lot of pain here. But then I went back to grinning. I got the big picture. I got a total, not like I'm any different than anybody else, but I got this understanding of who and what I am and why I'm here and what's going on and what this all means. And I just wanted to woohoo, woohoo. And to answer all the EMT's questions, I'm like, no, I didn't hit my head, because they're wondering why this guy has such a big grin and why I'm wanting to dance and I'm dying. In fact, when I got to the hospital, somewhere there's a picture, and I know Betsy Chassie, who made the movie What the Bleep. She recorded me for an upcoming documentary series, and she wants me to find this photo. Somewhere there's a disk drive with a photo that I took in front of the doc before he wheeled me into surgery, going, Michael, he goes, don't you get it? He goes, you are going to lose your leg or die if I don't take you into surgery right away. To which I turned to the doctor and said, don't worry, doc. Everything in life happens for a reason. It's going to go back together better than you ever expected it would. And I'll be darned, this straight-laced, very A-plus personality type, linear guy comes running in the next day to the hospital room, throws up an x-ray on the light box, and he goes, Michael, you're never going to believe it. And he goes, and he's tapping and pointing to the titanium. It went back together better than I ever expected it would.
Wow. So now that you've actually, thank you for telling us giving us the context, telling us the story. And now you've been through that process and you reflect, because you're no longer in the dire physical pain that you were in. By the way, you're giving us a great deal of inspiration. And before you came along, I just took a card from the Oracle of the Angels of Atlantis, and it is inspiration. So you're giving us this inspirational uplift. What do you feel was actually taking place, other than the fact that there were huge amounts of release of endorphins within your body, which uplifted you into this state of samadhi or satori?
The best I can explain it is I went somewhere. I may never know the exact context. Maybe I should do, it'd be fun to do a past life, or not past life regression, do it some sort of a hypnotherapy and go wherever I went. I saw, I learned, I brought back. What's interesting to me is In some ways, my value system was the same. So I've always wanted to help people. In some ways, it was radically different. So it's not, they talk about whoever they is, walk-ins or something about you stepping out of your body and somebody else stepping. I don't believe that's the case. I believe I've always been this me, but I was not the same me. It wasn't that I was endorphins or you don't really get the runner's high from exploding bones. But
so if you were to,
really
because a lot of people will not know you, if you were to stress or to identify two qualities that really defined the epitome of what Michael was all about before the NDE, and two qualities that were something that you've recognized post NDE, what would they be?
I'm a dear friend of mine. So she said this at work before we became friends. In 2000, I think it was, and the accident was 2006. She said I was an asshole. I was a very nice guy, but I was more self-centered. I was more, it's all about me. After the accident, it was all about we. That me was gone, just completely gone. And I think it had started going away with my bike ride across the country in 2004. But it was completely transformed in 2006. Before the accident, I was more fear-based. I come from a great, loving, fearful family. I was more fear-based before the accident, more driven by that fear. And afterwards, the only way to describe it is heart had been blasted way open. And it still had a way to go. So beforehand, I wouldn't say I was a bad guy. I would say I was self-centered, fearful, playing things small. Afterwards, heart way, way, way open. And I didn't even know how to do the balance. Here comes NDE number 2, for instance. I didn't know how to play the balance game of I'm here to serve, and coming from this total heart-centered place of we are one. I no longer saw a separation after that happened between you and me. I don't have the visual. I can't see these rays of light connecting the two of us. It's a knowing, though. It's a complete and total knowing. And I might slip out of that for a moment. You know, if somebody's in line and they cut in front of me, particularly, you know, if they whacked my wife, for instance, for a moment I will forget. But I will boomerang back so quickly that we are one. And it's not just a metaphor. It's not just a statement. It's a reality. And that was a complete change to who and was I was before.
Yes, it's a total experience. So, you know, we're at this interesting point in the definition of our consciousness, aren't we, as we record in October 2022 for November 2022, where we're beginning to see that the intellectualization or ideological aspect of our body has led us into ideological bunkers. And when we move into what you're defining as the rarefied state of pure spiritual unity with cosmic consciousness, we drop into our bodies and we start having experiences that remove us from the bunker.
Beautiful, much better put than I said. But yeah, that's exactly.
So there's the first, then the second.
The second, I was on a book tour that I was pushing. I was being Sisyphus, and I'm pushing a stone uphill to go on this book tour. For a good cause. Everything I was teaching at that point was more physical related, to help people as a backdoor to spirituality. So I was out on a book tour gone bad, and I finally recognized the signs that I was supposed to go home and lick my wounds. It was for a book called Barefoot Walking, which we won't even go there. It's a beautiful book, though, but I broke my foot.
Yes, a stunning book. And we can't see Michael fully. We only see his upper body, his torso and his head. But Michael has the most extraordinary body that pulses and radiates. So anyway, I just wanted to celebrate the conviction of pro athlete Michael. I always remember the elasticity of your form when I met you. And
Thank
so,
you. So
NDE.
NDE2, let's just fast forward. Book tour that wasn't meant to be. Wife flies out to help me end the tour early, get the RV back, and go about it a different way. Basically, I was too head oriented, not following the signs of the universe. I must slay the dragons. And that's what happened post ND number one. Is it's very easy. You get all this information and you feel I must now do all of this good stuff, and you go back to a state of ego. And so that's where I was until we pulled off in the RV, like 35, 50 miles from returning it early to its destination. There's a guy on the trailhead. He had like Lennon glasses, except they were like a red chrome facade or mirror on them, red hair. And he's like, "You've got to try this trail. You won't be sorry." We hiked out on this trail. And for some reason, I remember pointing to Jessica and saying that something about the granite, that this rounded, smooth granite by Lake Tahoe, that millions of years after we're gone, it will still be here. And it was like, so in a movie, it would be so ominous and so foreshadowing. We get up to this water hole along this creek called Horseshoe Falls. And you can see a snow cornice ledge up above. The snow would melt, come down into this beautiful, pristine water hole that I had to swim in. And it was, 32, 33 degree water. And I swam down in it. It was silent. It was so pristine, so beautiful. I got out, I shivered, it was cold. And then I went back in a second time. Then I went in a third time. At this time, I'm turning blue. And amazingly, or ironically, I lost my glasses in it because it was so cold. I swam the third time with my glasses on. I could still see okay with them off. Got me warmed up, put some clothes back on, actually put a pair of moccasins on because my wife didn't want me freezing as we left there. Hiked a little bit, turned to my wife and said, I'm ready to have kids. And, we hugged, we kissed. She crossed this tiny little creek. I took 1 foot across the creek, tried to take the next step, had the moccasins on. The moccasins slipped. I went flying through the air, and I landed on a pyramid-shaped rock on my other leg. And what Jessica heard was, "Oh no, not again." And the world started going tunnel vision on me. Everything started leaving from me until it is a tunnel. I didn't get the tunnel of light. These aren't the part of pyrotechnics I'm gifted with. I was given, though, a choice. It wasn't a voice. I don't know how I was given a choice, but there was a very clear choice to be made. Go this way, go toward that tunnel, so to speak, and you're going to be in peace. You're going to be in bliss. You'll be taken care of. Everything is good. Go to door number 2. You're going to have to fight your way to come back. It's going to hurt like hell, but you'll make it. At least for myself, Stuart, when you tell a loved one, I'm ready to have kids, and she's by your side, she was 100 feet in front of me or something, you don't go and abandon. Abandon, that's such a human term, but I chose door number 2. I had to actually yell at myself, I don't know, inside or outside, to get myself to start breathing. It was a manual operation for the next hour. I was trying to figure out how I stay alive. And so there's a most amazing, brilliant Lake Tahoe sun above me. I don't know that it was a spiritual light. It was just incredible, bright sun. I was breathing in sunlight, sending out love, thinking of others. Breathe in light, send out love. Breathe in light, send out love, to keep me going for an hour. When the fire department or EMTs got to me this time, no blood pressure on me. They're completely freaked out. I've been bleeding out internally. They freaked out to such an extent that a year later, I don't know what legal organization, maybe representing California Highway Patrol, contacted me and said, "Do you want to press charges against the emergency crews?" because they were recorded saying profanity when they were supposed to be saving your life. And I remember the moment, because they were arguing with distro to get me a helicopter or I was going to die. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Can you give them an award? Breathe in light, send out love. I lived.
So this is an astonishing example for all of us who are, through our life experience, taken into extreme conditions. And this was something that you appeared to do completely instinctively. There was no thought. You just immediately yielded and surrendered into the divine bliss of breathe in the sunlight and breathe out love. This is remarkable. How long did it take you to recover, just so that we can get to the full picture of, these two remarkable contextualizations?
And then please let me give you a briefer third non-NDE that finished the trifecta off.
Okay.
So we had challenges in the hospital. So I'm trying to figure out the exact timeline. They wanted to get me moving early. Oh, first off, they were shocked when I came to the day after surgery. And surgery was, I guess, much more difficult than they expected. Took 2 helicopters to save my life and then emergency surgery. But the day after, the doc came in and was shocked and said, how did you get this picture up on your website already of your leg? And I'm like, oh, what do you mean? I've been here. And they said, well, here's the titanium rod, the titanium hip, and all the hardware we just put in. No, man. That was the previous accident. They were identical. I had, after the first accident, a titanium femur, titanium hip, hardware and stuff, and an inch leg length discrepancy. After the second accident, identical hardware in the other leg, no more leg length discrepancy.
Wow.
It even faked out the doctor. So they tried to get me moving quickly. I told them not to, but they said, no, we have to, or you won't be able to get moving. I'm like, look, if anybody can get moving, it's me. My blood values crashed. They had already given me 4 or 5 other people's blood. And they said, if we don't give you more blood, you may not make it. I'm like, no, I'll be fine. We're going to hang in there. I think there was an angel who had me, who I hadn't even met before the accident, who we had met through a connection that you probably also have on Maui, who took me into her home. And I think I stayed 6 weeks, it might have been 4 weeks, but I think I stayed 6 weeks on her couch in her living room before I could grow enough red blood cells again, before they could get me on an aircraft and get me back to Maui. It was a time period of, I couldn't lift my head off of the pillow. I was so exhausted. But it was a time of, you don't have to try to plug in at that point. You just be. And I think it was, I don't know if I want to use the term beautiful. My higher self would use a beautiful time for me.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing. And this seemed to powerhouse you into developing a slipstream of energy in relation to the way you wanted to communicate your full mystical experiences and all the extrapolations thereof, because shortly afterwards, I mean, I know there were a number of books and you started to teach, but then the inspiration of Inspired Nation came to you and you started with this transformational show, which is quite extraordinary, which has been wonderfully successful.
So
Congratulations.
Thank you. That came about after being catapulted off of Maui. I had my third accident. We'll just suffice it to say I broke all the bones in front of my heart, above my heart, behind my heart. That was the finishing of the cracking me wide open, where I've just fully surrendered. And Jessica, my wife, had gotten sick with mold toxicity poisoning. We found there was an inch-thick carpet of black mold in the house. We found it a week or 2 before moving. We were wiped out. We got kicked off of the island, so to speak, to Maui. We ended up in my wife's childhood bedroom, a tiny little bedroom. But I had learned this practice that I had been playing with, but not taking that seriously. A practice of automatic writing, a practice of communicating, writing to spirit. And Once I left Maui, I started doing that as a daily practice of communicating with spirit. That's when everything changed. That's when I was open up to listening. That's when it wasn't just sitting on the cushion, kind of blissing out, but being lost. To now I'm getting moment to moment. Well, first it started as day by day guidance, but then when you start speaking with spirit for so long, it starts to come to you even without the pen. And so getting moment by moment guidance. Start a show. Here's what it gets to be about. Jessica has the best name in the world. Run with it. Here's where you're going to go with it. Here's what you're going to do. Here's how you're going to start your coaching business. Here's how you're going to start teaching classes. Here's how we know you don't want to write it, but you know you're going to write a book on automatic writing. No, I'm not. Yes, you are. Here's how you're going to write a book, and on it's gone.
So would you classify yourself as being an obedient person?
That's a funny question. No. I'm
Because
better.
as we hear your stories, there is this wonderful ability that you have to yield or surrender to the higher power of spirit, the cosmological intelligence. And so that shows devotion, dedication, discipleship, which is all based on profound love, but also due diligence. There's obedience there.
So by that definition, I'm obedient with a clause. And that clause is, I still will ask lots of questions or go along slightly begrudgingly, not meaning any ill toward nature, but I'll be like, you want me to write a book on automatic writing? Are you sure you got the right guy? You want me to do X, Y, or are you absolutely sure about it? And I will always ask these questions, but I will never go against it.
Yeah.
So I like to do my due diligence first.
Yeah. Because, those sorts of questions, it seems to me, is that you're preparing the muscle of deference. You're preparing your route towards, how can I just allow this being to slip out of the way so that I can be really enveloped by the wonder of what automatic handwriting is all about, in the sense of that your body, as it were, all the proprioceptive aspects of your body are taken over by this supernal alignment of energy. So, it's extraordinary to hear this story. As you move forward, also, you're a highly practical guy, because we can hear the way that you pragmatize your way forward and decide how you're going to organize yourself. If you were to look back at the first year of Inspire Nation, what would you say were the two principal determining features that led your interviewing of people to such a large audience?
One, it was divinated. It was always meant to be. The year prior to that, we had been recording a program on mindful running, connecting to the breath, connecting to the earth, connecting with movement. And I was supposed to do, I think, 3 interviews to help promote this. And that turned into 42 interviews. And wow, am I good at this? And that's a sign that that's coming from somewhere else. So part of it was that it was divinated. The second part is like that medal I showed you earlier behind me for qualifying for a world championships again, which is to say, I brought all of my sporting skills, all of my tenacity, all of my endurance, all of those pieces to bear to make a show that would go from 0 to number 1 on the charts in just a couple months by design, and then have it keep taking off from there. So I went for it with an unhuman, not recommended, but it worked, amount of zest, until after, I think it was year 1, my wife is like, dear God, man, you've got to back off, because I was doing 7 shows a day plus, I think for the first 100 days, an extra show of a meditation a day. 7 shows a week plus a meditation show a day for the first 100 days, then 7 shows a week for the first year or more.
That's a lot.
Yes.
And so the divinatory process became such fun that you became compelled to continue. Because if it wasn't fun, you would have given it up.
Which is interesting, because as you're speaking to me, this has been my, here in October, November 2022, has been my my Job experience, me and the fish experience of this year. I have been told to back way off on the interviews and focus more on my voice rather than other people's voices. Mm-hmm. And that has been a hard process in which they're wanting me to have even more faith. Like I said, I go along begrudgingly. I go along slower than universe probably would desire. And I probably could have, the riches of avarice or something sooner if I was to fully embrace. But they've been saying all year, less interviews, less interviews, less interviews, until I finally hit the sabbatical. I started beginning of August, said I'm on sabbatical now. I will teach a YouTube live event. I will have the very rare occasional interview. I think you were one of my last as I was winding that segment down, but I get to listen and shift gears. That can bring up fear, worry, concern until I remember, hey, wait, this wasn't mine to begin with. But I started both on the divinated side of things, and I started with my mind full speed. I used both of them. And now I'm being challenged to let go, or more like rise above, supra mind, and let's go fully embracing just this other side and see what magic comes about.
So you're so aware, you're so animated by your creative trajectory, sloughing off skins, going through near-death experiences, reaching points of finality, reaching points of completion, having rebirth, resurrecting, and going in new directions. This is an immense exemplification for all of us to understand that we're really here to optimize our creativity full of love and joy. And so it's a question of you're always listening to that soul impulse, that is, which you call the divinatory aspect, as well as what does my heart say? And when your heart is, yeah?
Well, I have to. If I don't listen, it hurts, and hurts badly. And
Yes.
and I like to say, one of my all-time favorites, John Lennon, beautiful song, Instant Karma. Instant karma's gonna get you, knock you right upon the head. If I start to go off track, not that there is one exact path. We're infinite divine beings. We can choose any path we want. But if I start to go away from that voice, then universe will very, very quickly help knock me back on path.
Yeah. And so what I was attempting to do, probably in a slightly clumsy way, is to define my observation of what your story is all about, and the little that I've read in beyond the story, from just being very aware of you and the development of Inspire Nation. I mean, intuitively as well as in 3D. That you're a really wonderful exponent of the illustration of the law of abundance and the law of attraction, that we're here to optimize our creativity full of love and joy. Well, what does that mean? And you have a clear idea, which is received through divinatory practice. So there is the what, but then you bring the whole of your being, particularly your heart consciousness, into why. Well, because this is fun. This makes me feel good. This is going to actually extol the virtue of so many people that I interact with, whether they be my dear one clients or the dear people that come for interviews. And you've had some pretty extraordinary global leaders on your podcast, that as a result of this, the fire of that passion illuminates the conviction of what the success is all about, because I feel the whole process is magnetized towards you. I think it's really exciting. It gives us a further understanding of how, in our own separate way, we can optimize our creativity and have great fun.
I brought in the bike to the bike shop earlier today to have some work done so I can ride it indoors for the winter on this indoor platform. It's odd, but you can see why around here. So,
say why?
Well, I got Jessica's birthday last year. I got whapped by a car here. So, and we've had a lot of moves, and we found ourselves back in the Jersey area this fall, and Jersey is where I got whapped, and so I'm going to be riding indoors more or less.
I'm so glad.
Thank you. So with that said, I was talking with a bike shop sales manager earlier today, and we were talking about where you go in life. And I said, you have to go to where you're, wow, can you hear that?
Yeah.
There is a giant motorboat taking off as we're talking about our path. We live on the largest lake in New Jersey right now. So I said, you have to follow the pull on your heart. You have to follow that call no matter what. You have to do what you love. And he said, or at least do something you can tolerate. And I said, no, you did not come here. You did not incarnate to do something you can tolerate. That's not why you're here. You have to follow that pull. And I told him, I said, look for what is scary, because that fear is just an energy between you and me. Since we're talking about creativity, that's what that fear is. We've all experienced creative angst before we go to paint or draw or write or dance or go on stage. It's not a bad thing. If you're nervous before you go on stage, it means you got a pulse. That's a good thing. But we have to lean into that energy. That's where we come alive. That's why I'm talking to you here. And I want to talk to you again in the future about this, because I got challenged and I boo-booed the challenge. I cleared my calendar for writing this fall. Then a teaching opportunity came along and I said yes. Oh. And it has presented itself in a whole bunch of challenges, but I will get to do my writing again by January-ish of this year. And I have book after book after book after book lined up in the queue inside of myself as soon as I give me the time. And it feels fun. It doesn't feel like I'm going to work to write a book. I'm excited. I am like, let's do this.
Yeah.
It's in every one of us, no matter what it doesn't mean you have to write books or anything, but there is that energy inside each and every one of us.
Mm-hmm. And your story is amazing about the way that you've learned to manage all of the multiplicitous energies of you, because we hear your personal story, but of course it's so illumined that we can actually borrow aspects of your story to illuminate the conviction of what our own stories are all about. It's a big story. It's really, really excellent. And it's wonderful hearing it, bearing in mind that I got the first part some years ago. And here you are with not this point of finality, but this wonderful sense of ascent onto a very high summit, because you've taken full responsibility for the wonder of the way that you influence and inspire thousands and thousands, millions of people. As you look into that great field of intelligence that you're partly creating, you know, you're the manager or the curator of this energy, and then you have all of these wonderful people, including all of your co-respondents, you know, all of the people that you interview, as well as your audience. You're looking into a world and you're seeing this vast field. In terms of the future, are there particular aspects of the way that the world is changing, the way that we're bringing into creation this brave new world? Are there particular aspects, say, if you numbered 3 aspects of how you're bringing yourself to a new point of objectivity in service to mankind?
Number one, let's see what comes to me, but number one is energy. I pulled back my book, Automatic Writing Experience. I pulled it back right before it was to go to print. and said, we need to do a bunch of work on this. And my editor, I love her very dearly, is like, I can't work with you anymore. I'm done. This book is supposed to be sealed. What happened was, and I drove her batty at that point. What happened is, what I understood, and that is where humanity is going now, is that the word is not the word. The word
is not the word.
That's correct.
Okay, meaning?
It is energy.
The word is energy.
The word is energy, and it is all a transmission of energy.
Yeah.
Why do people listen to Stuart Pearce? You are transmitting at a very high level. Why do they listen to me? I'm transmitting at a very high level. We are each transmitters. We're each receivers. Once we begin to understand that, we transform our lives. We vibrate at a higher level, but we rewrite the picture of the world, a new global image of the world. This is all a hologram, a holodeck, and we have this image of the world. We completely rewrite that through our energetic nature. So while I'm not saying, oh, the answers are just in the inside, just meditate, which on some levels is true, what I am saying is the answers are all energetic. Let's play with our energy. And I believe that's where the biggest shifts will occur. Not just carrying signs around or doing really cool, good things, but it's the energy behind them and behind the word that matters most.
When you look into the world with this extraordinary perception of energy, and I love the note that you make of the word and how the word is energy, it is spelling. We spell, we cast spells.
Yes.
But you look into the world and you see the world in the current state that it's in, and you choose one particular area that you may be culturally fascinated in, emotionally fascinated in, or indeed spiritually aware needs your help. Which area of the world would it be?
The one that chased me down earlier this year, and I haven't given it too much energy lately, but the one that chased me down in a dream. I think it was a night before it happened, which is my cultural heritage is Ukrainian Jew, Russian Jew.
Wow.
And the war, I'm going to cry now, which means I hit a truth. The war came to me in a dream before the war took place. We just said the word is not the word. Let us say the war is not the war. It's a time to come together as one, as energetic beings, having an energetic experience on this energetic, tiny, infinitesimally little small blue dot where there are no sides, and to play a higher level game. There are no reds, there are no blues, there are no Russians, there are no Ukrainians. We are simply it, man. And that is a big part of my focus. I see that as a last gasp of the old hierarchy, the old way of being. But I also see it as a positive black hole. We think of black holes as negative. Well, guess what? You're in the Milky Way galaxy. What do you think is at the center of this galaxy? A black hole that organizes all of this. It ain't emptiness at the center. It ain't nothingness. It's the everything. So that black hole of energy swirling around a very central location on this planet, geopolitical central location, draws our awareness in to help us seek an answer at a higher level, to help us recognize our divine humanity and to take action. And action may be sitting on a cushion. Action may be focusing on your energy. Action may be sending love. So I see it as a huge. Now, I had a pausing because I had an EA last summer in Palestine, Palestinian, amazing gentleman. And I stuck by his side, so to speak, as they're being bombed and he's hiding under stairs. And friends of his are getting killed running from one house to another trying to survive. So I don't make light of this. I don't make light of the condition at all. And yet at the same time, it can be, if we choose it to be, a moment of incredible, powerful, positive transformation where we learn a different way, where we dance a different tune to a different tune.
Yeah, yeah.
That's how I see it.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. As we look out of our being, we have a screen in front of us, which is called consciousness. And of course, you and I know that it's not happening to us. It's actually responding to us. And so you're standing in front of Mr. Putin, and you have one thing to give him that will ameliorate his situation. What would it be? Would it be a word? Would it be a gesture? Would it be a smile? Would you place your hand on his heart? What would it be?
If at all possible, his bodyguard's allowed, to be a hug. I got to go with the hug. It's love.
Beautiful.
It's all, everything taking place. And I won't label this person good, this person bad. It's all wounds. It's all fears. It's all worries. If I could, okay, I'll give him a hug, send him love. But let's say this. It's okay. It's okay. You're going to be all right. If I can speak to that wounded little baby child inside of him that is so afraid, and it's not just him. It's so many of the world leaders today, as they're desperately trying to hold on to power, because coming from the ground level up is a wave of massive change. And they don't think they're gonna be okay.
We got it. We got it. Brilliant. Now you're standing in front of President Zelensky. What would be your offering?
Same thing.
A hug. Okay.
A hug. Let them know it's all going to be okay. There is no difference in anyone. It doesn't matter who's carrying the gun, who's carrying the olive branch. We're all in this together.
Yeah. Yes.
Period.
Yes.
Done deal. End of story.
Yeah. And the beings that we're seeing, although they're living their own karmic and soulful trajectory, we know that they are also reflections of aspects of ourselves. And so rather than blaming or accusing, if we use insight and resolution to heal the dictator, or whatever we call, without any judgment, that particular form of behavior, or indeed the freedom fighter, if we can actually heal that, then automatically love becomes the adhesion that brings about healing.
Which means to heal, as you were calling them, archetypes, to heal the various archetypes, we really begin here by healing and loving ourselves. If you shift your vibration, heck, I was on Netflix a little bit ago. I'm still a movie nut. And I'm seeing the #1 movie in the US right now, some guy with a gun and a silencer, maybe pointed to somebody's head, and, another gun movie and a killing movie and this. If we realize where we're vibrating at and where we want to be, and we start playing at that higher vibration, and we start ingesting energy at a higher vibration, all of it goes away. I can't say how. I don't pretend to know how. The electron doesn't know how it got from one state to the next. There is no linear path. It just, bing, all of a sudden is. As will we be.
I feel like, I know you have this answer, but I also feel that there is an answer to, I don't know how that happens, because we do know that there is administration of celestial intelligence at this time. So I just thought, I have the Oracle of the Angels of Atlantis next to me, just to finalize this brilliant conversation. I choose one, and I've just literally opened the deck. It's Metatron, the supernal teacher.
It had to be.
Miracles. And of course, the babe is not just a miracle of human endeavor, but also it's a wonderful metaphor for new life, new creation, new birth.
I have to. I will do this as quickly as I can. We have our baby who you met before the show. She was, and always will be a twin. Her twin sister crossed over in utero, came down and went back. And her name is Miraku, which means miracle. And when she's channeled, she comes through as miracle, a miracle to teach us all.
Michael, this has been the most amazing dialogue. I really, really thank you. And in thanking you also, and I know all the people that are going to be listening in to the emission that takes place in November, but also the recording, because here it is for perpetuity, that they're going to be exercised, they're going to be amused, and they're going to be deeply, deeply moved by your wonderful exposition. So I thank you from the core of me, from the very deep part of my heart and the depth of my soul.
I don't say this often, Stuart. Actually, this has been my favorite interview. I don't say that ever. This has been my favorite interview, and I want to share this with everyone everywhere. Your energy is extraordinary. Your questions magnificent. But this is a standalone energetic piece, an attunement, a transmission that is of a very high level. And thank you for holding that space for us to do this magnificent dance to help others. And I want to get this out to the world, Stuart.
Bless you, Michael. Bless you. That would be absolutely wonderful. I feel that we're aided and abetted by some extraordinary beings of light.
I like that, Michael, particularly the abetted.
Michael Sandler, I send you love, and I say to you and also to all who are listening, namaste, namaste, namaste.